Have you ever stood before an opportunity? I'm thinking maybe a massive organizational change, a new venture, perhaps a deep personal calling that just felt overwhelming, so vast it made you feel small. We're not really talking about how hard the task actually is, more about that moment, that internal check. You look in the mirror and wonder, am I really the person who can lead this?
That internal moment, that flicker of doubt, that really is the crucible for leadership, isn't it? Because how we see ourselves, our own
Yes, it
capacity,
means everything.
it fundamentally determines the scope of our vision.
Yeah.
It dictates whether we face a massive challenge with, say, curiosity and conviction, or with just paralyzing fear. And we're going to explore this ancient story today that holds, I think, a timeless lesson for every leader now. That choice.
Yep.
Are you seeing yourself as a tiny grasshopper, or are you recognizing the giant you're meant to be?
It's fascinating because potential giants, they're rarely stopped by what's outside. Usually it's the internal stuff, right? That misbelief, those whispers of imposter syndrome, maybe,
Yeah.
or just old inferiority complexes.
Absolutely. They get paralyzed from the inside out.
So our mission today, it's pretty straightforward. We want to dissect that critical link, the one between your self-image and your leadership vision. Understand the tragic results when that self-concept shrinks.
And critically, give you a practical tool, something actionable to help rewrite that internal script.
Okay, let's dive in then. Let's unpack this, starting with that core story you mentioned. The 12 spies Moses sent into the Promised Land. That's in Numbers 13, right?
That's the one. And the setup is it's key. This wasn't some exploratory mission about if they could take the land. God had already promised it.
So it was more like a confirmation exercise.
Exactly. Confirming the potential. And they did. They brought back physical proof. Remember that huge cluster of grapes? Needed 2 men just to carry it. The promise was solid. The potential was clearly immense.
But then comes the report, or rather reports. 10 of the 12, they focused entirely on the obstacles.
All about the inhabitants being giants, the Anakim and the cities being huge, fortified, scary.
They gave a summary, sure, but here's the line, the one that just defines this whole leadership lesson. You really need to hear this. We seem like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we look the same to them.
Just pause on that sequence for a second. Think about it. Their feeling of smallness, that was internal first.
Before they even mention how the giants saw them.
Right. They didn't say, those giants make us look small. They said, we seem small to ourselves, and therefore they must see us that way too. Their vision, their ability to actually take the land, it didn't shrink because the giants were objectively big. It shrank because the mirror they held up to themselves was distorted.
That's self-fulfilling prophecy right there.
Textbook example.
So it implies that if a leader believes they're inadequate, they actually project that insecurity onto their team, their competitors, the challenge itself.
Precisely. They assume the opposition sees them as weak simply because they feel weak internally.
Okay, so what about the other two, Caleb and Joshua?
The Minority Report. Now, they saw the exact same things, same big cities, same, 10-foot giants. They didn't deny the obstacles were real.
But their self-image was different.
Totally different. It wasn't based on comparing themselves to the giants. It was rooted in the strength of the one who sent them. Caleb just cuts through the fear. He says, let us go up at once and take position, for we are well able to overcome it. No hesitation.
So if we pull out the leadership principle here, it wasn't the mountain height or the fortress walls or even the giant size that was the deciding factor.
Nope.
The only thing that changed was the leader's view of themselves, their self-image.
That was the variable. When you feel like a grasshopper, every big opportunity just looks impossible. Your vision shrinks down to match your fear. It's almost automatic.
That ancient scene then, grasshoppers versus giants, it's not just history. It feels like a blueprint for the internal battles leaders face every single day.
It really is.
So we need to bring this forward. How does this grasshopper gaze show up now in today's world?
Yeah.
Because it feels like more than just, general self-esteem issues. It's about leadership identity.
It absolutely is. And we can connect it straight to modern psychology. Think about the concept of self-concept.
Okay.
That's basically the sum total of your beliefs about who you are, your abilities, your roles, what you think you can and can't do. For a leader, a weak or fractured self-concept is, well, it's catastrophic.
Why catastrophic? What does it hit first?
2 key things immediately: resilience and vision casting.
Okay, break that down. How does a limited self-concept look in, say, a VP or a team lead?
It often looks like avoidance or settling. If your internal script says, I'm not really equipped to handle global, your vision just stops at the domestic border.
Ah.
And resilience. It means when there's a setback, a project fails, you miss a target. You don't see it as temporary data. You see it as proof.
Proof that you're not cut out for it.
Exactly. Proof that the negative self-concept was right all along. A healthy self-concept says, okay, that didn't work. What did we learn? A grasshopper self-concept says, see? I knew I couldn't do it. Failure becomes destiny, not data.
And this sounds very closely linked to imposter syndrome, doesn't it?
Intimately linked. Think back to the spies. They'd seen miracles, God's power firsthand, yet they felt totally unqualified for the next step. That's imposter syndrome, just on a massive collective scale.
That persistent feeling you're a fraud.
That dread, believing your successes are just luck or good timing, and any minute now you'll be exposed. For a leader, that internal voice whispers, you're not really enough for this, or someone else should be in charge.
And that just stops you in your tracks.
It paralyzes growth. A leader caught in that grasshopper gaze, they might not scale up a successful pilot project. Why? Because they fear the bigger spotlight, the scrutiny?
Or they avoid tough conversations.
Absolutely. Avoiding necessary conflict, maybe with the board or a difficult team member, because deep down, they don't feel they really have the authority to stand their ground.
So it's not the world setting the limits on your leadership. It's your own perception.
Bingo. Your internal landscape dictates your external boundaries.
Okay, so if we accept that our sort of default self-concept might be flawed, maybe built on past hurts, or comparing ourselves on social media or old mistakes, where do we find a solid foundation, an identity strong enough to lead like a giant?
The antidote, the only solid ground, is what we could call biblical confidence.
Now, we need to be careful with that term, right? It's not arrogance.
Not at all.
Yeah.
That's crucial. Arrogance is trusting your own smarts, your MBA, your track record. Biblical confidence is actually rooted in humility. It's a profound trust, not in yourself, but in God's character and his power working through you.
So shifting the source of confidence.
Completely. It's about replacing that shaky, subjective grasshopper report, playing in your head with the objective, external true report based on your identity in him.
And these truths, they aren't just feel-good sentiments. They seem to offer a real strategic edge. Our sources highlighted 3 key ones. First, you are chosen. That's from 1 Peter 2.9.
Yes, and think about what that means practically. Your leadership. It's not an accident, not a fluke promotion. It's part of a divine design, a specific calling. That changes how you view responsibility, doesn't it?
It has weight, but also authority. Okay, second, you are a new creation. That's 2 Corinthians 5.17.
This one is vital for overcoming the past, because the Grasshopper Report loves to replay your greatest failure.
Oh yeah, that project that tanked 5 years ago.
Right, or that bad hire. This truth says that's not who you are now. Your past mistakes don't define your current identity or your future potential. The true report anchors you in your present reality, your new capacity in Christ.
And the third one, this feels like the operational game changer, the perspective shift. You are seated in heavenly places, from Ephesians 2.6.
This is the ultimate counter to the grasshopper gaze. Remember the spies. They saw themselves on the ground, physically looking up at these huge giants, overwhelmed by the immediate threat. When you truly grasp that your spiritual position is seated with Christ, you're shifting your viewpoint entirely. You're moving from the battlefield trenches to the command center.
Looking down on the problems.
Exactly. Looking down from a place of authority, victory, and strategic overview. You're not lost in the operational weeds, reacting emotionally to every giant that pops up.
That really does change everything. It's like the difference between a soldier pinned down by enemy fire versus the general back at HQ who sees the whole map, the supply lines, the reinforcements coming.
Precisely. When you internalize this seated identity, you stop seeing yourself as this tiny grasshopper just trying to survive the week. You start operating as an empowered agent, equipped for challenges that, frankly, are way bigger than your personal talent alone could ever handle.
Okay, but let's be real. Many of us, myself included, have spent years playing that negative internal tape. That grasshopper report that says, not good enough, not smart enough, not ready.
Decades sometimes.
So if we want different leadership outcomes, we can't just wish for it. We have to actively change the script, don't we?
Absolutely. Beliefs don't just vanish because we hear a powerful message or read an inspiring book. They change through intentional, consistent rehearsal of the truth.
which means we need a tool.
We need an actionable tool to practice rehearsing the true report over and over. And that tool is the leader identity statement.
Okay, this sounds practical. This feels like where the theory hits the pavement for our listeners. It's not just about positive thinking, is it?
No, it's far more than that. It's a strategic reframing tool. Think of it as a concise, biblically grounded declaration. It states who you are, what you're empowered to do, and why you're called to lead.
And it uses I am statements.
Yes, powerful first-person I am declarations. You are consciously choosing to define yourself based on God's objective truth about you, rather than the swirling subjective fears, doubts, or criticisms in your head.
Can you give us a couple of concrete examples? Something a leader could actually use day to day, connecting these biblical truths to their actual job.
Sure, so a generic affirmation might be, I am capable, which is fine, but a leader identity statement gets more specific, more targeted. It might be, I am a courageous visionary, chosen by God and equipped by His Spirit to steward complex resources with wisdom and integrity.
Okay, I can feel the difference.
Or maybe, I am a collaborative leader seated with Christ in authority, and I build teams that reflect His kingdom values, refusing to be paralyzed by internal fear or external pressure. It connects the identity truth directly to the leadership function.
I see how that directly pushes back against those grasshopper feelings.
Exactly. And it's powerful against those psychological traps we talked about. First, it actively combats imposter syndrome. When the lie says, I'm a fraud, your rehearsed statement declares, no, I am chosen, anointed, and my authority comes from my calling, not my feelings. You're replacing the lie with specific truth.
And resilience.
It builds resilience because when that crisis hits, and it will, and your confidence wavers, this memorized statement becomes your anchor. It's the truth you declare back to yourself, maybe even out loud, when fear is screaming the loudest. It reminds you where your real strength comes from.
So the actionable step for you listening is take some time this week.
Right.
Actually write the statement down. Make it personal. Include your identity in Christ, your specific gifts administration, strategy, encouragement, whatever it is, and your current role or calling.
This is the daily discipline. It's how you intentionally starve those grasshopper lies and feed the truth of who you are in God's kingdom. It rebuilds your self-concept on solid rock.
Now, as we're pursuing this, let's call it giant-like confidence.
Yeah.
We have to talk about balance. Because it's possible to swing too far the other way, right?
Absolutely. There are ditches on either side of this path. We need to avoid distorting our self-perception in the opposite direction.
So the first pitfall.
The first ditch is the danger of overconfidence. We could call this the false giant. This isn't biblical confidence. It's arrogance, hubris.
It's the opposite of the grasshopper, but just as distorted.
Right. The leader relies completely on themselves, their own perceived brilliance, their past successes. They tend to dismiss advice, ignore counsel.
Because they think they know best.
Exactly. They believe their past wins automatically guarantee future success, often without putting in the same effort or due diligence.
How does this show up in their leadership style? Operationally.
Often as recklessness, underestimating challenges, taking massive risks without adequate planning because they're running on ego. If things go well, they take all the credit. If they fail,
It's always someone else's fault.
or bad luck, or market conditions, never their own overconfidence. The false giant confuses personal ability with God-given dependent strength.
Okay, so that's ditch number one. The second ditch is, well, it's where the 10 spies ended up.
Precisely. The paralysis of inferiority complexes. This is the entrenched grasshopper.
We've touched on this, but it's more than just doubt.
It's excessive self-doubt that leads to chronic inaction. This leader avoids necessary risks at all costs. They constantly need external validation. They can get stuck in analysis paralysis, always gathering more data, scouting the land again and again.
But never giving the order to actually move.
Never. And often, the entrenched grasshopper becomes a micromanager. Why? Because they don't trust anyone else's judgment, but fundamentally, they don't trust their own either.
So the goal isn't just not being a grasshopper. It's finding that specific path in between these two ditches.
That's it. The goal is biblical balance. It's a confidence that walks a narrow path. On one hand, it's humbly aware of personal limitations. You know your weaknesses, but you don't let them define you or paralyze you.
Okay, aware but not defined by weakness. What's the other hand?
Simultaneously, it is fully dependent on God's strength, knowing that the power for the task comes through you, not from you.
Aware of limits, dependent on God.
This balance is what allows for real boldness and vision without tipping over into pride or ego. You can stand tall and say, okay, this challenge is huge, and honestly, in myself, I feel inadequate. But The one empowering me is limitless, so let's go.
That feels like the true posture of the giant leader. Not self-important, but God-dependent and therefore incredibly courageous.
That's the heart of it.
Wow. Okay, that brings us almost full circle on this deep dive. It really hammers home that core idea, your leadership vision. It simply cannot rise higher than the image you hold of yourself today.
That's a hard limit.
And the tragedy of that Grasshopper report.
Yeah.
It wasn't just losing one battle. It was 40 years. 40 years wandering in the desert, dying just short of their destiny. All because they believed a lie about who they were.
40 years, just miles away. That's the cost of a grasshopper mindset.
So the choice, it really is constantly right in front of you, isn't it? Are you going to listen to that paralyzing grasshopper gaze? Let past failures or perceived inadequacies keep your potential boxed in.
Or will you choose to internalize the true report? Start operating out of that unshakable identity in Christ. Embrace the giant within, the one he called you to be, and step boldly into the big vision he's given you.
Which leads us to a final thought for you to wrestle with this week. What if your current wilderness season, that period of struggle, maybe delay, maybe organizational friction you're experiencing right now, what if it's not punishment? What if it's actually preparation, designed specifically to forge the kind of rooted, giant-like identity you absolutely need to take the land that's ahead of you? How does that reframe the challenges you're facing right now?
Go take the land.